Hi and welcome back. In our last video we went ahead and set up this header area right up here. In this video we're going to go ahead and format our top navigation links right here. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up the finished version of this website, and you can see the way these are going to look here. So it's got a nice, very simple hover effect on that top navigation menu right there. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that and come back in here. And we're going to do two things. We're going to actually create the links, and then we're going to set up the CSS to format the area. And you can see here when I look at my different elements, there are no links on these items. And if I look into code, you can see I just simply have a simple unordered list here with the individual list items inside of that unordered list. Now we could come in here and we could add the A tags to this, but we're going to use Dreamweaver's design view for this. And we haven't used design view for very much yet in this project. Dreamweaver's design view is great for speeding up common tasks and also debugging things like CSS, but it's not intended to be the tool that you use to create your entire website. Most of your work is going to be done in code view, and you're just going to be working with content, working with common tasks, or debugging CSS or your layout in design view. That's really what it's meant for. And you can see here I have my properties panel right down here at the bottom, and I can double click on that to expand and collapse it. We went over that in the introduction series, but I'm just going to go ahead and open that on up, and I'm going to use the link box here to add the links to these various items. So I've gone ahead and highlighted home, and I need to go ahead and type the link into that particular menu item. Now we have a little bit of an issue here because we haven't actually created these pages yet. We're still working on the page layout to create these pages from. So what you have to do at this point is you have to figure out what you're going to name all of your pages, and then you'll use that. So just go ahead and jot those names down. We're going to be use very simple names: index.html for the home page, about.html for the about page, so on and so forth. And you just want to make sure that when you actually create the pages themselves later on from the template that we're working on right now, that you actually use the same name. So I have home selected there, and I'm going to go ahead and type index.html, and again that's the name. Whenever you have a home page, that's the name you're going to use for it. And then we'll do about.html, recipes.html, gallery.html, events. And one common mistake here is you might type in event.html, and that would mess you up. Links.html, and then contact.html. So now we've created the links. I'll save that. Let's go ahead and look into code view, and you can see Dreamweaver has added the appropriate A tag to each one of these elements. Well, now that I'm done with the properties panel, I'm just going to double click right here on the word properties to collapse that. So again, we have more room to work in here. Now before we start working with the CSS, I want you to take note of the way our navigation is laid out here. And specifically I want you to notice the parent-child relationships amongst the different tags here. At the very top level of this element we have the ID top nav. So top nav is going to be the parent of everything inside of it. And then you have the UL tag, and then we have numerous LI tags which also have an A tag inside of them. So when we're doing our descendant selectors, it would go top nav as the topmost level, then top nav UL, then top nav UL LI, and then finally top nav UL LI A for the anchor. And again, when we've worked with HTML and CSS in the past, you should be somewhat familiar of how those descendant selectors work. So now let's go ahead and go into the style sheet. And again, you can use your related files up here just to click on styles.css, or you could open that up directly from your Files panel. Either way works fine. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down until I find my items here, and there is Top Nav. And I'm going to go ahead and really quickly just copy that and paste this in a few times. There we go. And then I'm going to add the descendants, because I know I'm going to need to put these in here eventually. And you can write these out any way you want. I just kind of prefer to put them in there ahead of time. And we'll go ahead and save that. Now, the first thing I want to do is make sure that this top navigation extends all the way across the width of the design. So I'm going to go ahead and in my top nav, I'm going to go ahead and say width 100%. And I could do the same thing. And actually, you know what? That would be a little redundant there. And I forgot my semicolon too. So I'm going to actually just put this into the UL style right there. So first thing we do is we say that this design element should go edge to edge across our entire area. The next thing I want to do is I want to fill that design area in with the color of our background. And you can see here the green that we're using for that. And again, I want that green to go all the way across here. So I need to put that on the UL, not onto the list items. And I'm going to do background dash color. And I wrote down that color ahead of time. It is 718 D2C. That's the name of, or that's the hexadecimal color code for that. And now let's go ahead and look at this, and you can see that's been filled in there. Now the next thing that I want to go ahead and do is I want to go ahead and place these in an inline format. I want to place these in an inline format. And you can see the difference here. These are inline, whereas right now these are stacked on top of each other. And remember, in the introduction series and in various CSS videos, we've talked about the difference between block level elements and inline level elements. Block level elements stack on top of each other, whereas inline elements line up to each other. And again, you can change whether something is defined as a block level element or an inline element by simply adjusting the CSS. So I'm going to come in here to my LI tag, and I'm going to go ahead and do display inline. And we'll save that, and let's take a look at this. And you can see now these elements are lined up next to one another instead of being stacked on top of each other. They're now in an inline format as opposed to being in a block level format. And the next thing I want to do is I want to actually go ahead and create the button itself here by adding some padding to this element. So I'm going to go ahead and come back into my style sheet here. And again, it's the link that we want to be the button. And the link is the A tag. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to say padding. And again, this is going to define the size of the button. I'm going to say 10 pixels top and bottom and 20 pixels left and right. And we'll go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and take a look at our HTML there. And you're not seeing any differences at this point. What's the problem with that? Well, the reason for this is that we made these into inline level elements, and you can't apply vertical spacing to inline level elements. You can see we've applied some horizontal spacing here, but we don't have any vertical spacing. And we can correct that simply by applying floats to the individual elements and the outer container. So I'm going to go ahead here and say float left in my UL tag, and I'm also going to say float left in my individual A tags there. And we'll go ahead and save that. And now let's go ahead and take a look, and sure enough, we can see the buttons that are right there. A few more things we need to do here. We need to go ahead and format the text that's inside of the link. We need to make it a little bit larger. We need to make it bold. We also need to apply the hover effect to this. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into my style sheet again. And I'm going to go ahead and say the color of my links should be white. And I'm going to go ahead and say the font size. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead here and hit return. That way you can see this a little bit better there. The font size should be 14 pixels and the font weight should be bold. So we've gone ahead and added a few elements in there, and there we go. This is starting to look more and more like what we have right here inside of our sample project. So now let's go ahead and create the hover effect. And we're going to create the hover effect by doing top nav and a hover. We're saying whenever we have a hover effect on that link, we want to do something. And specifically what we want to do is we want to change the background color from the darker green to the lighter green. So I'm going to go ahead and say background color here, and again I wrote down the color ahead of time. It's going to be 95B, oh I got 85B there, 95B F39, and put a semicolon in there, and I got to close my curly braces. And now let's go ahead and take a look at this, and if we go into live view here in design view, we should be able to see the hover effect. And there we go. So we now have our top navigation set up with just a few styles. We've gone from just a plain unordered list to this very nice navigation that's right here. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and work on our content areas here, as well as our sidebar, and we're also going to go ahead and set up our footer down at the bottom here. So I will see you in the next video.